Okay, it might be legitimate. Maybe there's something wrong with your account or whatever. They might provide a link for you to click on and be able to try and access information. There's all sorts of different kinds of scams and different things that they're going to try and do with that. So just making sure that when you are receiving these kinds of triggers of being able to potentially act on these things, that you're questioning, that red flag goes up and you're looking at things. Some really top ones that we have seen, job hunters, things that look like, oh, well, here's this job, you can go apply, here's the link, and next thing you know, you're filling out information that's got everything about you, and it's really nothing. More followers, like something for Twitter, things like that, a link that you can click on and, oh, it's going to give you more followers and things like that. The disaster group, this one probably bugs me the most. After a disaster happens, there's all sorts of good organizations out there, Red Cross and things like that, but there might be some other pop-up ones that might come into play that, oh yeah, this thing happened and here's a spot that you can donate and things like that, but people get drawn into that because they want to help, they want to give, they want to do that. And potentially you're putting it at risk because it doesn't go to who it's supposed to. You might receive information that might be on a bill or something and it's like, well, what is this? And it looks legitimate and you try and go and pay it when it's actually fake, things like that. So it's typically things that are asking you to do things and compromise your information that typically are a normal thing for you to do, but you have to really be aware of how they're trying to do those kinds of things and what information that you're giving out to them. And then Tracy's going to talk just a little bit more on that for the Saga perspective.
As Mary said, the concept of social engineering is usually to evoke emotion from you, to scare you into getting you to react quickly and wrongly. As I said before, clicking on links that you're not expecting, opening attachments is dangerous. One of the concepts and one of the dominant things from social engineering is to actually get you to do that. Mary gave some examples. What we see at Saga is wire transfers. They'll either have, they look very clean. They look like emails that come from our CEO to our CFO to our controller asking to wire money. We've seen these in some of our markets where the business manager, a fake email that appears to have come from the business manager goes to the general manager or vice versa asking for money to be wired. The engineering is very well thought out. They're looking at our websites, they're pulling information about our users, about our employees and staff, and how they think that a business might be conducting its business. And they exploit that, and they send emails that say this wire transfer for $2,500 has been completed. Please see the attachment. The attachment is malware that then compromises your computer and steals your data. There may be a link in there. We're seeing fake purchases. We're seeing iTunes purchases come to our employees that are, again, they're designed to evoke that, I didn't buy this crap. What am I going to do? So it comes with links and it comes with attachments designed to invoke that fear and that reaction. Fake credit card approvals. You'll see in these emails, for example, with our CEO, Ed Christian doesn't sign things with his full legal name, but we'll see in those fake emails the use of his legal name because it's on the SEC documents and some of the places that the information is scouring for that data. So one of the ways that you see the telltale signs of that type of fraud is looking for things in a user's signature or contact information that's not real. Sometimes it's really hard. We've had emails that took us 3 to 4 hours to determine how they got through our systems and how they compromised fake addresses. One of them was as simple as an extra letter in an email address, because our system will block emails that come from a user inside the email. If a user belongs to our company and comes from outside of the system, it'll block that. But what they'll do is they'll throw an extra letter in the email address, a lowercase I, 2 I's in a row or something like that, so that our system doesn't see it as an internal user and it allows it to go through. You're seeing more and more sophistication. In the early days of these attacks, you would easily identify the attacks because they were clearly written by non-native English-speaking people. That's changed drastically, and you can see that sometimes a Bank of America fake email will look more legitimate than a real Bank of America email. But what you're seeing is those businesses are responding by stopping they don't send you those types of things in an email out of the blue, unless you're subscribed to them and getting them regularly. If you see those types of things, the overwhelming majority of them are fake. They're designed to get you to click on a link or to open an attachment. As I said earlier, you're the human firewall. When you're seeing sensitive stuff, when you're seeing stuff that invokes panic or emotion, stop and think about what you do before you do it. Don't fall for the social engineering of the attack. Don't fall to click on the link or open the attachment. That's what they're trying to get you to do, and that's where the risk comes in.
So looking at this next slide, we've got some information, and you can tell by this that Amazon, if you hover over that, it actually goes to this different type of link here. So you know that you're probably wondering, well, why did I get this information? The email address is wrong, the link is wrong, so that should be a red flag. And there's no specific message. It doesn't have my name on there to be able to do that. So it's very generic and things like that. Should be a red flag for this one. And then the same thing down here. Very poor grammar, limited punctuation, there's no spaces between certain things, stuff like that. Again, very general valued customer. So those are just a couple examples of how might be aware of those things coming through. Now we move into data breaches. So again, we've already talked about hostile websites. Obviously, there's some sites that we know not to go to, but they may be in a sidebar of something that you might accidentally click on, and things like that might take you to a malware kind of location and things like that. So just being able to understand where to click and know what to click on and things like that. Less is more. When you do have to fill out website forms, or even when you're going to the doctor's office, doctor's offices don't necessarily like me because I don't like filling out a lot of the personal stuff, especially like if I go for one of my kids, they want their social security number. They don't need their social security number. They need my social security number because they bill me. But when you go out to a site, there's all these required fields, and then there's some fields that are not required. Social settings and social media, we really have to be aware of where we're at, what information that we're sharing. We love to be social. We'll go out after work and have some drinks or whatever the case is. We get together. We maybe have had a hard week. We're talking about our information, who maybe we had to deal with or whatnot. But you have to be really careful about who might be sitting in that table next to you. Or if you're traveling, it's amazing how small the world is. It really truly is amazing. So just making sure that what we're sharing is maybe not disclosing too much information and things like that, not name dropping or talking about specific names of clients and whatnot in there. So because it is huge to make errors, whether it's in a physical setting or whether it's on a social media type of site. We want to keep our work and personal matters separate. We want to make sure that things are disclosed appropriately. Act slowly. I can't tell you how many times we've been out on social media sites and we've seen things and you're like, or you probably know of an instance where you're like, wow, I can't believe that person actually posted that. And then maybe they react and go, oh, well, no, I need to take that off of there. As we mentioned earlier, it's hard to get those things back. It's out there. Even though you delete it a minute later, it's out there. So really be aware of what you're doing out there. Be aware of how you're sharing your information. Another thing I see commonly is people will go on vacation and they'll be like, oh, hey, I'm on Facebook. Here's our pictures of, what we did today or whatever. Well, if a friend of a friend is, can get to your information, then they'll be like, they're not home. They're in Florida or wherever. Potential, theft risk there too. So it's opening a lot of doors for some risk there. Privacy settings. Know your privacy and security settings on different sites and things. They change. You think you may have set them, but they may have changed in there. So you have to go out there and make sure that what you have out there is only those that you want to be able to separate and things like that or share. And then the last one, just make sure that what you're putting out there is what you want everybody to see. I always say, what your boss can see, and I always say, like my grandma, for example, she's like the most dainty woman ever, and she would just be utterly embarrassed if she saw something that was inappropriate on someone's site. So be thinking about that as well. All right, I think Tracy's going to finish it off.
I'm sure most of you are happy to hear that we're in the final stretch of our presentation. I want to come back and focus on a couple of things in conclusion. One, if your computer is infected, shut it down, contact IT, unplug your market's internet access. It's far better to overreact in the case of something that appears to be compromised than to underreact and have more problems. This is, again, counterintuitive to us in radio and TV. The need to be on the air is real, but again, there's times when protecting the business, protecting the other Saga markets, protecting our data center from a compromise that's local is more critical. There's ways to keep the stations on the air and work around it without the internet, and sometimes it's necessary to do so. The next steps. What are we doing after we leave this room? Your business manager is going to provide you a screen that contains quite a few security vulnerabilities. You're going to have a bullet point, and Saga IT, myself and my team are going to maintain a list of the items, single sentence descriptions of problems and threats, not sharing your password, those types of things so that you have a reference that you can look at. It's important to understand our policies and procedures. We understand that they're burdensome. We're a publicly traded company. We have a lot of obligations. We've got a lot of things that we've asked you to remember. We're going to keep in your hands bullet points of those. We're also going to try to do something to help you outside of work. In the packet that you get from your business manager is going to be a list of items. We're going to give you options and recommendations for iPhone settings, Android settings that turn off some of the location and tracking services in those devices that are unnecessary. It's not necessary for your camera to know where you're at. It's not necessary for your flashlight to know where you're at. Those things are real threats, and preventing that, the concept that Mary talked about is least privilege. That applies to people having access that they don't need. It also applies to applications not having access to things that they don't need. If you prevent your flashlight from having your location, it can't be used as a hacking device to know where you're at. If you prevent your camera from talking to your tracking, it can limit some of those threats as well. Something else that's a high recommendation from the IT staff and that we've done at Saga is Windows 10. Windows 10 fixes tons and tons of security problems. It addresses a lot of things that have been out there in the wild, and it's a really good operating system in my opinion. One of the things that's bad about it is it's got Katara, which is, again, tracking everything you do. It's tracking your movements, it's tracking your internet access. We've turned off of those features in Saga, and we're going to present you in your packet with some options that if you're using it at home will help you further secure your own computer. Ask questions, don't be afraid. The IT department gets a lot of them. We'd much rather hear from you. A lot of times your question will spur emails that we send out to the entire company to try to disseminate information. If we think that it's a common question, it helps us in dealing with it. Those are really the next steps. That's really kind of the conclusion. Thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it.